Hey everyone, it's Holly again. I wanted to talk about isolation today and how the narcissist uses that as a form of manipulation. Briefly, isolation is basically them trying to get you away from anyone else who may basically anybody that would be on your side. They want to get you away from your family. If you're close to your family, they want to get you away from friends. They want to get you away from sometimes even their family, if their family has an inkling that they have a problem. I actually have more than one experience with this, as I've mentioned before, because I was with a narcissist about 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, and I noticed that with him, that he would, and I was with him a lot longer, so the abuse was a little bit more advanced. I got into the more advanced stages of it than with this, because I was only with this one for about a year. So anyway, basically, the one that I had over 10 years ago was a friend of the family. He was the nephew of one of my mom's really good friends. They had gone to the same church that we'd gone to my whole life and his whole life. And we knew of each other, but we'd never really been friends or anything. His aunt and my mom were talking, and she suggested that maybe we get together, meet each other, see how it works, see if we like each other. So we were set up on a double date, and double sort of blind date, I guess, because we hadn't seen each other in a long time. And we hit it off right away. I don't remember that one as far as, each individual stage. I do remember that I did like him right away. He was a nice guy, at first, and then later on, obviously, his true colors started showing. But I noticed with him that he would try to get me away from my family, namely by having me over to his house all the time. I lived, with my parents. I still do. And, back then, so he, would get me over to his house, and he lived with his mom at the time. So, we would hang out over there most of the time. And, I do believe that narcissism runs in families a lot of the time. So, I believe his mother was somewhat of a narcissist. He was the golden child. His sister, was treated well. I didn't notice her being, abused or anything like that, but, he was definitely the golden child, and I think, anything other than the golden child is obviously not the golden child. So she obviously probably felt the short end of the stick on that one, but I think the whole family was kind of a little off, which I noticed with this recent one as well, and I'll get into that. But he would always isolate me from my parents. Not so much in the beginning did he badmouth them. Later on, he would, sort of badmouth my parents. And back then I was very young and naive, and I just kind of didn't stand up for myself, especially because the, sort of low self-confidence I had when I was with him. And, it hurt me because my parents are the most important people to me. So, it hurt me, but I didn't really object to him too much because I didn't want to start trouble with him. So, that was hard. And I remember, he would just say awful things that didn't even make sense. He would say things about my mom. He would say that, my mom is like the sweetest, kindest, soft-spoken Southern lady that you'll ever meet. And, he would say things like she was fake, which there probably was a hint of correctness to that, because after she realized what a jerk he was to me, she kind of faked being polite to him because she really just wanted to, grab him by the throat and, pull his jugular out or something. I don't know. But, he, got me away from them as much as he could. And, I don't know if any of you are familiar or have had this problem, but if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, your other relationships tend to go downhill. With this most recent time, my mom and I were arguing a lot more. I was kind of spending a lot of time out of the house and away from them because, we were just arguing a lot. And it was just because of the friction. It was because of the stress. It was because I was, upset with the situation that I was in, and I was taking it out on them. And, so that was a hard thing to deal with. But with this guy, the recent one, he was always trying to, he knew my mom didn't like him pretty much from the get-go, and she did not like him from the get-go. The first time she met him, she knew there was something scummy about him, and she told me, but I didn't listen, of course. So, he would always play the victim card. He'd be like, I just don't understand why she doesn't like me. I just don't understand. But, in the end, after I went no contact, I got a couple of emails from him from that particular day that I left him, that I broke off everything. And he had said in it, tell your holier than thou mother that she's not so holy, and all this stuff. So I knew that was coming eventually. I knew that him being the victim and being like, I don't know why she doesn't like me, I like her so much, would turn into, your mom's a witch. But that's to be expected, and it did make me very angry because, like I said, I love my parents. I'm protective fiercely of them, and it made me mad. And if there had been a time when I would have broken no contact, it would have been that, because nobody messes with my family and gets away with it. But, I talked to my mom about it. She said, calm down. He's just trying to get a rise out of you. And she was right. And I didn't fall for it. So, but, he would, because of that, and actually before he realized my mom didn't like him, because that was the excuse, and I didn't want him over at my house either, especially after I saw I started seeing how he really was. I didn't want him over here because I had this strange feeling he would steal from us. And he was a thief. He would steal from gas stations and all that stuff. So, I had a feeling he would, because it was weird how he would walk around my house. If my parents weren't here, he would walk around and kind of, it was just really weird. I didn't like leaving him alone. And if he did come into my house, it was for very brief periods of time. And, I just had this icky feeling about him. I just didn't feel comfortable with him in my house. I guess I shouldn't have felt comfortable with myself in his presence, but, baby steps, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so, before he used the excuse that my mom didn't like him and he couldn't come over, I have cats, and he would feign allergies, and he would come over here. I think one of the first times he came over, he was going to meet my dad, and, he, like I've mentioned before, he takes medicine for anxiety, and so he had taken Xanax, and he said he took, a couple or whatever, and I was like, why did you take that much? And he said, because I'm really nervous. Well, come to find out, that was his normal dosage. Now, he would go up and do, 3 or 4 on other days when he was, abusing drugs. But, and he met my dad, and I remember he fell asleep on our couch. It was so awkward because he snored like a howitzer. I mean, it was ridiculous. He was just so loud. It was like a buzzsaw. But, that one particular day when he was acting like he was like, we just have to go because I'm allergic to your cats. I'm itching all over. And, he took some Benadryl and all of that. And just made a big, huge deal out of it. He was such a baby. Such a whiner. And so was the first one that I told you about. He was a whiner too. they just love to whine. I don't know. It gets to a nauseating point where you just want to, slap them and say, grow up. But, so anyway, he used that excuse not to come over. So we would end up going to his house or, just something like that, just to get me away from them. I've mentioned before that his cousin is my best friend, and we've been best friends for almost 20 years. So, and she's been very supportive of me in the last month, and I thank God for her. We had not been that close in a few years, not because of anything that had happened. It was just that, she had had a couple of kids, and, just life, life things happen. So we hadn't been in touch as much as normal as, we were originally. And, we've gotten to be a lot more, we've communicated a lot more and kept in touch and spent time together and all of that. So that was great. If the one thing that came from this was that I, have my close friend back, then, that's good. So, I remember, at first, when we first started dating, he's like, oh, we need to get together with her and her fiance, and spend some time together and all of that. And I was like, yeah, that's good. And, the more and more, he started coming out, the real him. I started thinking, gosh, I just can't imagine how awkward it would be to go out with her and her fiance and then him. It would just be awkward, and they would see how weird he is and think less of me, And, so that, of course, never happened. Well, I guess a couple months ago, she and I had made plans to get together. No, back up. It was a Saturday. He and I were supposed to do something, but we had intended on doing something. But he called and was like, I'm on my way down there. And I could tell he didn't want to. So I said, are you not feeling well or something? He was like, well, I'm just not, I'm not up to par. My back's hurting, whatever. So I was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Just stay home. It's not that big of a deal. I was trying to avoid it being my fault somehow. So I said, don't worry about it. Just stay home. You'll be fine. Just relax a little bit. We'll talk on the phone and text or whatever. And he was like, are you sure? I don't want you to be mad at me. And I was like, I'm not mad. I'm sad that I don't get to see you, but it's fine. I'm not going to be mad at you. Well, a couple hours later, I texted her, and she had gone out with her family. I think it was right before her birthday. So they had gone out for a little, dinner. And I asked her, I was like, if you want to get together or talk on the phone or something like that, just let me know. And she's like, yeah, that should work. And so we made plans to get together. I had a feeling that it was going to be a problem. So I wasn't going to tell him at first. And then I thought I probably should, so that in case it comes back to him, he won't say that I lied. So I texted him and I said, I'm going to tell you something and I'm afraid it's going to make you mad. And he was like, what? And I told him, I said, I want to go see my friend. And he said, I don't give an S-H-I-T what you do. So right there, obviously, he had a problem with it. So I said, okay, well, this is why I didn't want to tell you. But if I hadn't told you, you would have called me a liar. So here we are. And I got very upset. I cried on the phone. This was probably around the point where I would sort of just cry and I would get so mad at him, and I would just rage. And it's like they push you to a rage so that they can call you crazy. So they're just, I don't know. And so he, of course, called me crazy and was like, you're acting like, this crazy person or whatever. So, I was just like, whatever. I was going to go over there to her house and see her. And then, of course, we fought. Well, then we kind of reached a compromise. He still wasn't happy. He said that I told him to stay home and not come to see me. Or we wouldn't spend the evening together because I wanted to hang out with her. I had no clue we were going to hang out. I just knew that he wasn't feeling good, and I wanted to give him the night off or whatever. So, she ended up coming over to my house, and we talked and talked, and he was texting me, and I, of course, texted him back. Of course, he had to text me just to, get his little hand in there, because he had to have some kind of attention. And I would text him back, while we were talking, which I felt was incredibly rude, but I just, I felt like I didn't want to hear about it later, so I would text him back. And, we got to a point where she was about to head home, and, he texted me and said, well, I guess I'm going to go to bed then. And that was usually his way of saying, call me now or else, a little idle threat. So she left, and I texted him back, and I said, you know what, I was just about to see her off and all of that. And we were talking about her grandfather who had just passed away within the year. And, obviously I wasn't going to sit there and text him back while we were talking about something like that. And she was upset. So, I told him, I'm like, you just need to get over yourself. And so he, of course, stayed up the rest of the night. So obviously he wasn't going to bed when he said he was. My point is, and also another situation that happened was I had a friend who I had worked with before, a while, years ago. And she lives, fairly close. I would say about 30 to 45 minutes away. But we had discussed getting together, just us two. And so I talked to him about it, and I said, and this was at the time when I still had pretty bad anxiety, so I wasn't driving very far at all. I was kind of just really nervous about driving, so I asked him if he could possibly take me up there one day to see her. And so he said, well, I think that if we're a couple, we should have friends that are couples. I don't think, he never initiated going out with my friends, even if they were couples. He always wanted to go out with his friends, but we rarely saw his friends because, as I later found out, he really doesn't have friends. He has acquaintances that he knew from the past. And, I think narcissists either don't have friends at all, or they have friends that, they pop in and out of their lives just so that they don't really stay in too long for them to see who they really are. But, he didn't want to do that either unless we were, going to go see them as a couple. Well, he never talked about it again, and I broke plans with her several times because, just because you sort of become conditioned to just sort of give up your personal life, your friends and stuff like that, because you just know it's going to be a fight. So you just kind of just say, you know what, that's fine. I'll either go and hang out with him, or I'll stay at home and, sit in my pajamas and watch TV and make sure that I'm there to text him when he feels like talking to me. So that was pretty much, the sum of that. But they will isolate you from your friends and family because they know that people who are outside of the relationship, because he's carefully and methodically primed you and groomed you to conform to him. He's made you into this conformist that conforms to him only. So if it's somebody outside the relationship, he hasn't had a chance to, prime them as much. So they're going to see his true colors, and they know that. So they want to get you away from them, and they want to get you as a unit away from them. He didn't want to spend a lot of time with my parents. He said that he did, but after he found out that they had some issues with him, he didn't want to. And my mom always said that he would just act really weird with me. He came over for a holiday, and we were sitting at the dining room table with, the family, and my mom said she saw him, pull me in close to him and whisper something in my ear, with all of us sitting around the table, that he whispered something in my ear, and she said it rubbed her the wrong way. Well, I had forgotten about this. I didn't even, know, and I was like, what? Why? What was, and she said, it's just weird that, it's like he wants to keep you all to himself. And, my mom's very intuitive, very smart, and she's, just very smart. And, I like to think I get some of my intuition from her, but obviously it doesn't serve me at all times because I was with him. But anyway, I just wanted to make this video because it's very important when you're with this person, as well as if you go no contact. All around the time that you go no contact. Right before, during, and after. As much before as possible. During, especially, and after, especially. You need to surround yourself with people who are positive. You need to surround yourself with people who are concerned about you and know that you're in some kind of relationship that's not healthy or functional. And they won't like it. The narcissist won't like it. They won't like that you're spending time with or talking to this person. If you have to, hide it. If it avoids a fight, hide it. It may even push it to a point where you can just say, hey, I'm not going to let you tell me who I can be friends with and who I'm not, you know. So that's what you need to do. You need to stay around those people as much as possible, the supportive people. You know, hopefully you have a supportive family. If you don't, find friends. You know, if you have friends, great. Get with them. Spend as much time with them as you can. Spend as much time away from the narcissist as you can. Because I have found that, the time... My camera cut off. We were fighting about another lie that he had told. And so those days away from him were good. I kind of wasn't, when you're around them, it's just like they're constantly brainwashing you. So you feel guilty about leaving and all of that stuff. You kind of get on their terms and all that. So get away from them as much as possible prior to the no contact if you can. And just get away. And I know that that's not possible for people who are married to them or have children with them. It's hard. It's different. You just have to really conform it to your needs and, your kids' needs and all of that. But as far as if you don't live with a person, I didn't live with him. He invited me to, and I said no. And he invited me to marry him. And actually, a week before I left him for good, we were at his house, of course, and he said, you know what, we should get married, in the next couple weeks. And I was like, oh, okay. And I changed the subject. It was just awful. But anyway, so he asked me to move in with him. I couldn't imagine living with someone like that. Ugh, it would just be awful. So luckily for me, I, had my own place to go, and I didn't have to be around him all the time if I didn't want to. So fortunately for me, but I know that that's not always the case. So just do what you have to do. But that's one of the huge warning signs of a narcissist, is they isolate you from people you care about and care about you. Don't let them do that. Push against that as much as you can. They'll even make you start to resent those people in a way. I never resented my parents because I knew that they cared. But at the same time, I was so, addicted to him. And I just, wanted to be around him all the time because that's how he brainwashed me and programmed me to be. That if my parents were like, please don't do this, don't go with him today, just stay home, you haven't seen him in days, keep it going and stop seeing him altogether. And I would get aggravated with them because, I knew that's what I needed to do, but I just couldn't do it. It was so hard at that point, and it wasn't the time to. When it's your time to go no contact, you'll go no contact and you'll be successful with it. But, I told my mom, I was like, I don't want to, it's too hard. You don't understand. You just don't understand. Little did I know, she understood very well. And, she's been absolutely paramount in my recovery from this. And so is my dad. He doesn't really know as much because I didn't want to let him in on all the crap that he put me through. I mentioned one time narcissistic abuse around my dad, and he heard abuse, that's all he heard, and got very angry and wanted to know what I was talking about. And I said it wasn't physical, So, anyway, but just look out for that, because isolation is no good, and all it does is you're just kind of getting inundated with only from that person, only from the narcissist. You're getting all this input from them. And you really need input from other positive people who can see the forest for the trees. You can't see it because you're inside of it, but they can see, a lot more than you think. Even people who are maybe distant. Like I told you, my friend who was his cousin, she saw a good bit of it, and she never saw us together really. So, anyway, comment, thumbs up if you like the video, and subscribe too, please. And recommend if you have any friends that are in any kind of abusive relationship and they, don't know if maybe this is what it is, point them in this direction, and, just watching the videos, if they catch anything that sounds familiar, and it helps them, then so be it. But, and just let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.